In this next Christmas promise, which we're looking at through the Bible, we're now going to look at one that was given to these millions of Christians in this church in the Exodus story, when the Lord rescued that church by himself, for himself, and he gave this promise. But Jesus, God's own words, Jesus explains it best. So I'm just going to start by reading a little bit from John 6, verses 32 to 35. So let me just read that. John 6:32. Jesus said to them, "Very truly I tell you, it is not Moses who has given you the bread from heaven, but it is my Father who gives you the true bread from heaven. For the bread of God is the bread that comes down from heaven and gives life to the world." "Sir," they said, "always give us this bread." Then Jesus declared, "I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never go hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty." Now, just on Jesus' own words, I just want to mention, he mentions hungry and thirsty, and they're important because in this Exodus account, there are these two famous events where the Lord gives life. He promises life and gives it to this church, and it's through water from the rock and this bread of heaven. Now, the water from the rock is this fantastic sign of Jesus, where this rock, which the Psalms also talk about, is God, and 1 Corinthians 10 again talks about this rock was Christ. And really, this sign of how this rock is going to be killed, broken open, and out of the rock's side will come life in this wilderness. That, of course, is this sign of Jesus' death. But, so we won't cover that this time, but the bread of heaven point. This is about Jesus being sent to us, about Jesus' birth. Now, this sign of this bread of heaven being Jesus coming to us is showing off a truth that the Bible is trying to explain. And I'll try and do this as quick as I can, but there are these two examples, both in Judges 13 and Psalm 24, and another place we'll mention. But there is this truth that comes out. There is only one person who can travel between heaven and earth. There is only one person, this one Lord, who can come down from heaven, and only one Lord who can ascend the holy hill, as Psalm 24 describes it. There is only one person who can do this, to bring life down from heaven and to come back from the earth up again. There's only one person who can do it, and it's Jesus. And in Genesis, of course, Jacob, we've already mentioned Jacob, but he has this truth explained as well. Jacob's ladder, as Jesus explains in John, is a sign of him. There is only one person who can connect heaven and earth, bring life down from heaven to us. There's only one person who can do it. It's Jesus. And that's really kind of this bread of heaven point. The church needed life from God, and there's only one person who can go and get it. There's only one person who can bring us this life of God, and it's Jesus, this bread of heaven. Now, the bread point, which we'll mention, you'll see in Exodus, there is this bread of presence. So this whole theme of the bread, which is Jesus, in Exodus, the Lord, whenever God the Father has someone coming to meet him in the tabernacle, he says, we won't look at it now, but he says, "I always want this bread present. I always want this bread of heaven person has got to be here whenever I meet with you." And his point is this: whenever we talk with God or get life from God or meet God, Jesus has got to be there. We can only get this life from God through Jesus, in Jesus. That's this point of this bread of heaven, as Jesus describes. He is the only one who can go and get this divine life and give it to us. That was this sign of Christmas. that this bread of heaven, which is the life of God, the fullness of God, there's going to be a moment in history where this life of God comes down to earth. And then we're going to be filled with this life of God. Eat of this bread. So anyway, that's just this point, a fantastic promise of Christmas, which Jesus himself explains to us. This bread of heaven is Jesus coming down from heaven at Christmas time.